As a sex worker says, my occupation remains this really special thing that if you are comfortable doing the services, you need no startup money. I don't want to pay for testing. I don't want to pay the state money to give me permission to be a prostitute. I think that puts class barriers into an occupation that is very equal for all of us to jump in and participate in. What other job can a person walk into with no recent references, get employed immediately, work flexible hours to suit them, and get a decent wage for a relatively short time at work? It's an industry associated with nighttime, often seen as shadowy because its photographic images are shot with silhouettes. Sex work doesn't subscribe to morals about the nuclear family, monogamy, and chastity. Changing how Americans as a whole view sex work could allow people to embrace it as a valid means of financial independence and personal autonomy. Despite the conception that prostitution isn't real work because it involves a community of people who are embracing sex outside the traditional constructs of marriage and monogamous romance, many sex workers feel privileged to be part of a profession that allows them to be so independent. Sex work is described as stripping, pole dancing, sensual massage, peep shows, sex shows, as well as prostitution. In a survey that interviewed 55 workers from a range of services, genders, and ethnicities, the results generally supported that modern sex work is not inherently damaging and that it provides great financial advantages, flexible business hours, and no employment problems. Even though many Americans hold a stigma towards sex work that depicts it as a dangerous and exploitive occupation, decriminalization or legalization of prostitution would benefit sex workers, clientele, and the general population. Workers would be able to practice their trade legally, and there could be better control around health issues, healthcare, and HIV prevention. Decriminalization could create a more sex-positive community and a safer environment for sex workers through support from law enforcement and the community. In a legalized setting, sex work would take place in a licensed parlor where the women have had a monthly medical check for sexual health. The client would have to practice safe sex, and the issues of consent would be discussed beforehand. However, many workers feel like the state is regulating their body way too much this way. In a study done in Brazil in 2007, it was found that where prostitution is decriminalized, 100% of the women interviewed were using condoms, with only 16.5% ever having contracted an STD. Organization, empowerment, and awareness of practicing safe sex and prostitution can be an effective HIV prevention strategy and will decrease other harms involved in the occupation. Many agree that prostitutes are more susceptible to crime and victimization because of their willing participation in the profession. Concern for the individual is often overshadowed by the so-called damages that sex work actualizes: disruption of community order, harm towards children, and disorderly conduct. The likelihood of violence against prostitutes could only be heightened by prostitution remaining illegal because the client could easily disagree with the boundaries of the sex worker and cause trouble with little recourse to legal protection. Not only do the laws need to be changed, but also the attitudes and perceptions of the law enforcement, who often allow the Johns to escape punishment while the sex workers are almost often always perpetrating. Both legalization and decriminalization of sex work could be positive steps for lightening our culture's views towards the profession and towards accepting individuals being sexually positive and independent in general. If Americans could set aside their innate feelings towards sex work, we would see a shift towards a healthier and sex-positive community, a safer environment for sex workers, and a general change in opinion towards those who are proud of their sexuality. And it could all be improved by making sex work no longer a crime.